I can hear the detractors screaming at the screen right now that you're just living a suppressed lifestyle. Your true you isn't out there. You're dragging some poor girl through an artificial relationship in the mud that she doesn't deserve. You're actually a cruel and bad person. Worse yet, you're white, so you're part of the patriarchy. You know what I'm saying? Like what would you say to that?
I want to offer hope to any members who are struggling with this. I intentionally made a detour to go to the LA Temple to make out in front of it because I hated the Mormon church so much. I hope everyone can realize what their true identity is.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Midnight Strike Through Mormons. I'm your host, Cardinellis, and I'm joined in the studio by Brad Whitbeck and a longtime friend of the show, Tember Harward, who is head of the, what is it called again? Beacon SSA. What is it again?
Beacon Ministry for Same-Sex Attracted Latter-day Saints.
Yeah, awesome. Your name's a bigger mouthful than the church, bro. So, you know what I'm saying? We've been friends a long time, almost as long as the name of your organization. But anyway, he's a super cool guy. We've been friends for a long time. And today we wanted to talk about the top 3 lies told to gay members of the church. And who better to bring in than Tember to talk on this topic? We do a lot of debunkings on this show of lies told inside and out of the church, for and against us. And I think this is a biggie right now, and Tember's going to walk us through it. So Tember, the floor is yours. What are the top 3 lies told to gay members of the LDS faith?
So, okay. Well, I guess
also feel free to introduce yourself and tell us about you.
Okay.
You know? I want some background here.
Yeah, we gotta get some background. Get to know him first.
So to qualify what I'm about to say, I'm a convert to the church. I lived an open gay lifestyle before I joined the church. Let's see, what else?
How old were you when you joined?
I was 22.
Oh, really?
Yeah. 22.
Okay. Well, like how openly? Did you have a solid grinder profile, or were you just kind of still signing?
Do you want to get into that?
Photos for leverage. I demand
Grindr
photos.
Grindr wasn't a thing back then. It was Adam for Adam, but we don't have to go there.
Okay.
But anyway, but yes, I had boyfriends and definitely did not keep the law of chastity, and so it was definitely a trial of faith coming into the church. But I serve with a couple different ministries. I serve with my personal ministry here in Rexburg, which is an in-person support group, and then I also am a board member with North Star International. They're a lot larger organization, but they tend to be just like online predominantly. And I write a blog called Musings of a Queer Saint. And so I talk about lots of different controversial topics relating to same-sex attraction and the church. So I'm married. Awesome. I have 2 kids. Oh, married to a woman, I guess I should specify that. And have 2 kids. And that's me.
Well, dude, before you talk about the top 3 lies, gosh, give us more of that story. Like that sounds, that's, like our detractors would say you are an impossibility, yet here you are. Mm-hmm. So before we get into the lies that they say and give them the floor, tell us about you, man. I mean, you're one of the most beautiful souls I know. And my heart broke when I found out you were leaving, you know what I'm saying? And fleeing to Idaho with all those other sellout Mormons, California Mormons that left, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, let us get to know you a little bit better. Tell us your story, man.
Sure. So I grew up in a part member family. My dad is active LDS. My mom is evangelical Christian. So I had a very conservative upbringing. I was never baptized though, because my mom disagreed with the church. So I knew, but I was raised predominantly LDS. So like I knew very well what the doctrine was, but by the time I was old enough to make the decision to get baptized or not, I was already like fed up with stuffing my sexuality down and hating myself. So I came out and lived that lifestyle for a few years, um, and I completely abandoned Christianity, and I especially hated Mormons because Mormons hate gay people, or at least that's what I thought. And there was even a moment where, so I used to go to West Hollywood all the time. That was like, those were my stomping grounds, going to the gay clubs in West Hollywood. And I intentionally made a detour to go to the LA Temple to make out in front of it because I hated the Mormon church so much.
Oh man,
you were one of those. See, they were usually in front of our chapel, but good to know that they made it down to the temple. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Anyway, so funny enough, that's a temple I got sealed in as well. So,
oh really?
But where was I going with that? Anyway, so
you detoured to go to the temple.
Huh?
You went on a detour to go to the temple. That's where you were going.
Oh yeah. Just to make out with a guy date I was on, just to spite the church. Like, that's how much I hated Mormonism. Anyway, and I just say that to make the point that, like, I really would have never considered joining the church. I was looking into everything else: Wicca, paganism, Buddhism, anything but Abrahamic religion. And my younger, so I'm the oldest of my siblings. My next youngest sibling is my brother Ashton. He joined the church about a year before I did and tried to proselytize me to the church. And I loved him. I'm closer to him than anyone else in my family. And so I listened to what he was telling me, but I wasn't accepting it. And he gave me a Book of Mormon to read, which I swore I would not read. But it just got to the point where I realized, like, there was this deeper meaning and purpose to my life that I didn't have. And I knew I was missing something. And it got to the point where I decided I needed something more in my life. And anyway, long story short, ended up reading the Book of Mormon, having a really powerful spiritual experience, and feeling that I needed to follow Jesus Christ in order to have more meaning and purpose and just peace. Like, because I didn't really have any peace in my life. At the end of the day, like, even though I had all the physical gratification I wanted, I didn't have, like, the spiritual, like, the, like, peace just to get me through the day. I don't know. I'm not explaining it very well, but anyway, and I knew through that experience that Jesus Christ was the answer to give me that deeper purpose. So I did a 180. I broke up with my boyfriend. I moved to a new city to be with my LDS family, and about a year later, I got baptized. So,
wow,
dude.
Yeah. Keep going, dude. Don't
awesome.
Stop. I got questions, but I also don't want to stop the flow. So keep going, dude. Keep going.
Okay, so year later, I got endowed, served a mission, served in the Utah Salt Lake City mission, and I kind of closeted myself again when I came into the church because I was afraid what other members were going to think, and I didn't want to be, like, outcasted or whatever. But when I was on my mission, I kept running into gay members of the church who had left the church because of their sexual attraction, and to me, that was a sign that God wanted me to be more open with my experience after I got home, well, on my mission, and after I got home, to help other people who were struggling with it. So, after I got home, I started being more open and vocal and trying to just to help other people. And then I took the leap of faith to start dating women, even though I had absolutely no idea how that was going to work out.
And what led you to make that decision?
To date women?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've always wanted to be a husband and a father. Like, that's, even when I was living my gay lifestyle, like, my top priority was to find the guy of my dreams and eventually get married and adopt kids. Like, that's something I always wanted. And coming into the church, I wanted to do that the right way, the way that the Lord expected it to be done. And my patriarchal blessings mentions that I would get married, even though again, I had no idea how that was going to happen. I decided, if the Lord said this in my patriarchal blessing and I have this desire, I got to take the leap of faith to make that happen. And
so many, I can hear the detractors screaming at the screen right now that you're just living a suppressed lifestyle. Your true you isn't out there. You're dragging some poor girl through an artificial relationship in the mud that she doesn't deserve. You're actually a cruel and bad person. Worse yet, you're white, so you're part of the patriarchy. You know what I'm saying? Like what would you say to that? You know?
Okay, so that kind of goes along with the 3 lies told to gays that I wanted to cover. So
okay, then dive right in. Let's just dive right in.
We can cover this first. So, and so the first lie that is told to gays is that we only have 2 options if we're going to stay in the church. Either we're going to get married to a woman and be unhappy, or both of us are going to be happy and our marriage is going to fail, or we'll remain single and celibate and lonely, but both options just are going to lead to us being miserable.
And then the only happy middle path is to renounce the church, say that it's horrible, perpetually blog against it, and then make out with guys in front of the temple. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, cool.
Those are the 3 choices.
Right? Those are your 2 options. You know what I'm saying? Okay.
Leave the church and go find the man of your dreams, and maybe join the Episcopalians or Methodists because they love the gays.
Yeah. That's funny. So keep going.
Anyway, so yeah, I mean, I understand the sentiment that people have where they're like, oh, you're not being authentic to yourself, you're living a lie, and how selfish of you to get into something like this, because isn't it damaging your wife, like that you can't be there for her in the way that she needs? And man, there's so much I could say about that, but all of that is we live in a very hypersexualized culture. And a lot of times we just focus on one aspect of intimacy in a relationship. And there's so many different types of intimacy, right? There's spiritual, emotional, non-sexual, physical intimacy, and of course, sexual. And I think a lot of the time when we're thinking about, if a homosexual man or homosexual spouse can meet the needs of a heterosexual spouse, where a lot of times we're just thinking about the sexual aspect, and that's not what makes a relationship. My relationship is built off of Jesus Christ. He's the foundation and the head of our marriage. And I have seen personally, and I know many other men, same-sex attracted men like me, who are in heterosexual marriages, where as they have, made Christ the head of their marriage and strive to have him in the center and the Spirit directing their relationship, and also focused on nourishing all aspects of intimacy, that when I have focused on having a deep spiritual and emotional and physical bonding with my wife, that plays into the sexual aspect. And that's a really sacred thing for me. But my relationship with my wife has been enriched a lot more than just by focusing on all those intimacy types. And that's not to say we haven't had struggles. I think every marriage has struggles. whether heterosexual or a mixed orientation marriage or whatever it is, all of us are going to have struggles, but it really depends on us loving God first. And if we love him first, our love for our spouse, no matter what the situation is, will grow. So I could keep ranting about that, but do you have any additional follow-up questions with that?
Oh, gosh, I almost dare not interrupt you.
I know, this is so good.
Yeah, this is so interesting. Other than just saying, I remember in a previous conversation we had when I very first met you, I remember as like summing yourself up, you said, I'm a gay man who's attracted to men in a heterosexual relationship, but I find my wife physically attractive. And that has happened because I started going with God first and focusing on the other aspects. And then the sexuality came, which is kind of a zigzag pattern that you'd never get to if you believe the binary presented to you previously. So are you just a unicorn, or do you think it's fair to say that you believe many of your other gay buddies could experience the same benefits of, honestly, a marriage that sounds better than mine? Because like, as I've talked to a lot of progressive people, oftentimes like, oh, well, why you think that, you know, like if heterosexual marriage was so worth preserving and done so well, and I stop them and I interrupt and I say, no, I don't think it is. Like, honestly, I have a great marriage with my wife that's above average, but it's gotten there. Like, if I'm honest, I married a Victoria's Secret model on steroids. She's smoking hot. Like, was it 80-20 physical versus, you know, spiritual and emotional, or maybe 70-30? Let me tell you, it wasn't down to 50-50. And with you, it sounds like I was starting out 90-10 in the other side of, you know, that. So it's like, I wish more of us had a better, deeper emotional connection with our spouses. I wish more of us viewed it in the truly Christian definition of the word, probably like Brad does, because he's looking at it right now. It's like, no, I was much better. But, you know.
No. I just think you made such a good point about how marriage is not about sexual fulfillment. It is about bringing a family closer together and bringing us all closer to Christ. That's such a good way to think about it. And I think that is so misunderstood in our current world, the way that people view marriage and view family even. So I really appreciate your perspective, because that's a fantastic reminder, whether whoever's watching this is a gay member of the church or someone who isn't. Like, that's what a fantastic reminder to everybody.
Yeah. So anyway, keep going. Top line number one, you said was what? Oh, sorry. I interrupted you. Go.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I was just going to say, in response to you, Brad, that we live in a romantic culture. And by romantic, I mean romanticism, which in my opinion is antithetical to what true love is. I think romanticism focuses a lot on the flirtatious, sexual side of a relationship. Whereas if we're developing real agape and pragma love, you know, which is a lot more deeper, committed love than your eros and what's the other one I'm thinking of? Anyway, some other Greek word. You know, as we focus on the right kind of love in a relationship, that, at least in my experience, has helped me to have a sexual desire for my wife, not in a lustful way, but in a way to bond with her. And anyway, there's something else I was going to say, and I can't remember what it is.
No, dude, you're crushing it. Oh, keep going.
Yeah.
Keep
Okay.
going.
Oh, I was just going to say one other thing is something that's controversial in our culture is the idea of sexual fluidity. Well, maybe it's not that controversial because the left likes to promote the idea that there's sexual fluidity. Like,
as long as it gets you out of your marriage and your church, but then once you're out, they're like, no, you never go back. This is a one-way street.
And I really do think academically in like the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see sexual fluidity as actually like what they say is the basis. That's the direction I see it going.
Following your natural impulses and being a natural person, as long as it gets you to cohabitate with your girlfriend and leave your church in the 80s, that's when the left and the secularists and the anti-Mormons are all about just being natural. But then when gender theory comes around, you know what I'm saying? And being natural is what keeps you in the church. Oh, no, screw it. You're trapped in a different person's body. You know what I'm saying? You need to leave. Naturalism bad. You know what I'm saying? So it's always like whatever ism they're promoting, whenever applied equally, you generally get balance. They're not interested in that. They're interested in getting you out of the church. So we will shortly see sexual fluidity soon getting vilified unless used as an excuse to get people out of the church and out of traditionally Western institutions.
Well, sexual fluidity is great to progressives when it's directed homosexually, but when it's a homosexual who is starting to feel heterosexual attraction, oh, that's taboo.
Oh man!
So, but I can tell you, it swings both ways, and
no pun intended. I'm sorry.
Of course,
I had to. He's my buddy. He knew it was going to happen. He knew it was going to happen. Just to remind you that we're the lowbrow show.
That's fair.
All right. You know what I'm saying?
I set myself up for that.
Yeah. Okay. So keep going.
Anyway, so that's where I think that's all I had to say on that issue.
Cool.
And I guess to the second point of that first lie is that if you're single and celibate in the church, that you're going to be lonely and miserable. I know, again, maybe this is just anecdotal evidence, but I know many gay Latter-day Saints who are active, who have and who have joy. Yeah, they have struggles like anyone else, but we can have healthy, fulfilling platonic intimacy with in our lives that gives us the fulfillment we need, even if we're not married or have sexual gratification. And that's something I need to work on too. I need to have platonic intimacy with male peers. But I think everyone needs that, right?
Dude, that literally sounds like brotherhood.
Yeah,
like
fraternity, right?
That yeah, exactly. That's no different. And I'm so glad to hear you say that, because A, they can't cancel you and get mad at you. You know what I'm saying? But B, like, I think a major disservice is done to a lot of our gay members when they're told how horrible their situation is, and that they're the ones that have it worst, and that their battleground is the battleground of the modern day, and this and that. You know what, dude? I got cancer. It's going to kill me 20 or 30 years earlier than some of my peers. You don't think on my deathbed, I wouldn't, trade in some gayness for another 30 years on life?
Oh, man.
You know what I'm saying? No, but like, seriously, let's be frank here. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't think I won't be looking over at Tember, who's been freaking, shredding it in the gym, getting all ripped. You look a lot better than when I talked to you last time. I'm gaining weight because the stupid chemo meds have fried my metabolism, and I can't have an empty stomach or else I start vomiting. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's I've lived in a children's hospital where fathers have held their kids as they died. You don't think that father would trade a lease on life with that daughter that's dying if she ended up being lesbian? Like there's so, like, the Lord in his infinite mercy, and I still haven't wrapped my head spiritually around this phrase, but the Lord in his infinite mercy spares no one from trials. So this one's yours. Now join the brotherhood of people that are working through life that is mother freaking tough, and we all need each other. You know what I'm saying? Whether we're bros and elders quorum, or whether we're dudes just trying to figure out how we make it work with our wives and whatever, we realize being a father is the pinnacle and apex experience in this mortal existence. So let's do it. We'll figure out, we'll mess up along the way, but we got each other. I don't see something wrong with that. But it's somehow twisted into being a hateful and bigoted and insensitive and horrible approach to life. And to me, I view that as the most empathetic approach you can find in the modern day. Secular humanism ain't giving it to you. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry. I veer verbose. You know what I'm saying? I apologize. I don't know. I went on a rant. That was my bad. But anyway, continue with what you were saying, Tember.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, I mean, I wrote something about this recently, but it really comes down to all of us have a cross to bear, right? Mm-hmm. And Jesus commanded us to take up our cross and to be obedient to his, just like Jesus surrendered his will to the Father. We all need to do that. And that means keeping our desires, appetites, and passions within the bounds the Lord has set. And
wow, does that lead us into
all
number
of us,
two?
right? So,
Okay, wow. Does
yeah,
I was gonna say, does that lead us into number two? Is number two good? I know we messed up your order.
I don't think that's a good segue, but I'll just do it anyway. So, okay, so next one is our sexual attractions are innate and immutable. And this is a pervasive lie that's permeating throughout the church, especially with progressive members who are like, "Oh, my homosexual attraction is is how I am eternally, and it's not going to change." And Romans 1, 26 to 27 refutes that idea, where
Really?
Paul says that homosexual attractions, and I'm paraphrasing, but you can go and read it for yourself, where he says that because we're fallen, we have desires that are sometimes unnatural, and they're not correct, and dare I say disordered. And I mean that disorder, not like a mental illness, but God has ordered sex to be between a man and a woman, right? And so anything outside of that setting, it would be considered out of order or disordered.
Yeah, and this is where I would just press pause for a second on you, Tember,
Sure.
and pardon the interruption.
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
There is an element in our church, and this is one of the few times this conversation where I would say that definitely culturally, I think this is where people will err. They will commit a logical error, and they'll say, yes, that is an endorsement of heterosexual marriage like mine, and an indictment of homosexual marriage like those people over there. And I would say, no, that order doesn't get you off the hook either. Because you were probably a lustful punk when you dated and didn't choose the sweet spirits, only went after the same hot chicks, probably didn't marry for all the same love that Tember married, for and cultivated. Like, that's not some resounding endorsement of the way heterosexuals are doing it. You know what I'm saying?
In fact, it's kind of an indictment of the romantic idea that you were talking about earlier. And I want to ask something from what you said there, just because I'm, again, as Cardin was doing earlier, thinking about like what people in the comments are going to be typing out and what they're going to be saying. What do you say to people who say that that's a homophobic way to view the world?
That homosexual attractions are disordered?
Yeah.
Well, a phobia is an irrational fear, right? And I would say this isn't anything irrational. It comes straight from Scripture. Now, if you want to make the argument that the Bible is just irrational and it's fables anyway, okay. Well, I respect your opinion on that. But if you're looking at things from a Christian worldview, the Bible's pretty clear.
And I would say it's not a homophobic slur if it's also equally applied. Because if it's just easier to audit gay relationships because you visually see them. You can't audit the average heterosexual walking down the street couple. I mean, unless they're glaring at each other and on their cell phones and like actively fighting. How many horrible heterosexual marriages are there that you just can't necessarily evaluate? And it's not your job to evaluate it. But I'm just saying, to me, it's only a homophobic view, if not equally applied to all marriages in the terminology that Scripture originally anticipated, which was marriage, not union after 3 months of dating to justify sex socially. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that comes back to keeping desires, appetites, and passions in the Lord's bounds, right?
Yeah.
Like, every time if every time we're having sex, we're just trying to satisfy our lust, is that keeping within the law of chastity? I don't think so.
No, yeah. I don't think so.
I think the God wants us to enjoy sex, right? It's supposed to be pleasurable. It's supposed to.
Good thing we're not Quakers.
Yeah. Or in the Middle Ages, when it was strictly for procreation, you weren't supposed to have any fun.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be enjoyable. But also, how many of us are trying to? This may sound weird. Involve God and the Spirit in that act, because it is a sacrament as well, right? Some might argue it's an ordinance, which I believe it is. And how many of us are trying to keep it holy, right? Like, that may sound weird to some people, but in my view, trying to see it that way has really helped me to bond with my wife in a way that I didn't think was possible. Because I was viewing things so much on just the sexual aspect, and not seeing how God really can be involved in this act to make it something holy and just more beautiful than I thought. I mean, have there been times where I've just lustfully had sex? Sure.
Okay, good. Now I don't feel so bad. Okay, good. I was getting real guilty there for like 30 seconds, Tember. I got to be honest.
Well, that's the thing is, all of us, we all have our issues, right? So, anyway, so I don't remember where I was going.
Well, let's just repeat it, because I guess I just want to go over it for those people that are just tuning in right now. You said we're doing top 3 lies told to gay members of our faith, of our church, and you said the first one. What's lie number 1?
First one is that we only have 2 options: to be married or to remain single and celibate, but both of them are going to end up with us being miserable.
Okay, and then what was the second one you said? I know we did them out of order.
Is that our sexual attractions are innate and immutable.
Okay, cool. We done with that one? We can go on to the third, or what?
Yeah, let's go on to number 3. So this one's a big one too.
Oh boy, I feel all of the anti-Mormons sharpening their pencils, booting up their keyboards, getting ready to jump on in. Yeah, okay, keep going.
Okay, so the church will eventually change to allow gay marriage in the temple.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Sorry if you hear my kids screaming in the background there.
No, it's all good.
Not enjoying bath time, apparently.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
That's awesome.
So I wrote a whole blog post on this, really detailing this more. If you're interested, go to my blog, Musings of a Queer Saint. And I go through this in a lot more depth. But anyway, this is just I don't know how much clearer the church can be than what they posted on the website, where it straight up says on there that marriage between a man and a woman is essential to the plan of salvation, and this will not change. So, and that's in the same-sex attraction section of churchofjesuschrist.org. And on top of that, the teachings on prohibiting same-gender sexual relations have been taught consistently in 3 different dispensations. So do you really think that the Lord's going to be like, hey, just kidding?
Yeah.
I've taught this thing in 3 different dispensations, through the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every truth shall be established, right? Mm-hmm. And now he's going to go back like that. No. The church has made it very clear that doctrine isn't changing. The church is not going to allow it. Or the Lord, rather, isn't going to allow it. And a lot of people progressive Mormons like to say, oh, it's like the ban for Black Africans holding the priesthood. Mm-hmm. That was overturned eventually. And
because we protested hard enough, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that priesthood ban has no scriptural basis. There was never any revelation. Find me the revelation that Brigham Young had. No, it was just a declaration to what? The Utah
legislature,
right? And it was something totally culturally based, right?
Mhm.
And that it was a cultural policy that had to be overturned through revelation. Those are the key differences. There is a scriptural precedent in Leviticus, in Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 6, in 1 Timothy 2, talking about multiple times where either the Lord directly is telling Moses, or Paul is saying that people who have sex with the same gender cannot make it in the kingdom of heaven. So anyway, and that message has been mirrored today. So,
and
will
also
the church change?
like,
no.
Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I thought you were finishing.
No, you're good.
But
You're good.
I was just going to say that it also seems like we've kind of adopted the language of our oppressors. And by the oppressors, I mean the Protestant creeds. And oftentimes when we get wealthy in the pride cycle, we absorb a lot of the culture around us. And that's never good for members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. When we got wealthy after having fled the persecution of the United States of America and built our own Zion outside of the United States of America and gained all that wealth, we started adopting the curse of Cain doctrine from all the other Protestant churches that were practicing it. And we tried to justify it through scripture. And then when we couldn't justify it, we started twisting the scriptures that we had to try and say like, oh yeah, well, Book of Mormon, yeah, well, we believe that too, Protestants. Yeah, well, we're in the cool Protestant club. You know what I'm saying? And when you start viewing you as being a child of God first, and your family as being eternal and progressing eternal, and that your union with your wife as creating that eternal family unit that you will end up experiencing salvation with together. You know what I'm saying? You start having a much deeper view than just the basic sex that our overly romanticized, or as some would say, hypersexualized culture gives us. And the other thing I've said, and I think I can mirror Kwaku in this, is I've always thought that, you know what, it's going to be different in the afterlife. Heterosexual, homosexual, anything sexual is just going to be different. Because at the end of the day, let's face it, my wife is my sister, but she's my wife. And my mother is my sister in God's family, but my mother, and she birthed me. And my dad is my brother, but he's my dad. But, you know, and Adam and Eve, they're brothers. But wait, they had sex and birthed the entire human family. And so no matter what, I have a feeling when we're all up in heaven, and this tabernacle of clay that we have right now with the hormones we know are pumping through our veins, when we don't have those and we're in whatever these perfected bodies are, and whatever horniness God gave us to survive the frickin' ice age as Neanderthals or whatever, you know, like when all of that goes away, okay, I have a feeling we're all going to look around and be like, yeah, that was weird. You know what I'm saying? And there won't be that old school Protestant stigma of those are the baddies. You know what I'm saying? That unfortunately does happen in some cultures to gay members of faiths or groups or communities or whatever, right? So, I've always looked hopefully towards the future. And that's not to say, as you said before, that, homosexuality is a disorder, right? They're on par with depression and you're bad and you're defunct and you're this. And you're like, no. That's your thing. And I got my thing. And as a heterosexual, my marriage sucks because I'm lustful because I married a freaking Victoria's Secret model on steroids. And it's hard to look at her and not be lustful. You know what I'm saying? So I actually look up to men like Tember. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, gosh, if I'm 100% honest with myself and I calm my soul for enough time to have an introspective view, I think I want to cultivate a marriage with my wife that is deeper and better and more like Tember's. I look up to him. I don't look down to him as a gay member. I look up to him. And we need more Tembers around so that we have better examples. So instead of giving these guys bad narratives that they're not welcome, or that they're not, correct, or that they're not this or they're not that. No, like it's like I look up to you for navigating this my own minefield that I haven't figured out yet.
And I really want to say, Tember, I really appreciate this third lie that you're exposing here, because I feel like when Elder Holland was talking about how we need to ensure that our love is not mistaken for advocacy. That was for a really important purpose. And it's because we don't want to be giving people false comfort and having people stick with the church because they think things are going to change in a way that then they'll be fine. And like they're delaying their happiness to then be happy when things change to be in agreement with what they want, right? So I really appreciate that you bring it up this way.
Yeah, I have to add to that is I know so many people who hold the view, okay, the church is they have this hope. The church is going to change eventually, and then I'll be able to marry my gay partner or whatever. And it's just like, those people are damning themselves. And I mean that in the traditional sense of the word, right?
Stopping their progression.
They're stopping their progression, hoping in a vain hope. And
yeah, ultimately, I don't think even they would like it. It's so Protestant to think that I'm going to hold out so I can enjoy heaven like the heterosexuals will. That's not like, if you actually view your mortal experience as training for your eternal progression to become, as Paul said, a co-participant in God's glory, not just some angel that hangs around forever singing praises to a God and never doing anything more ever in his entire existence because they fight this idea of eternal progression. If you were to seal a man and a man together or a woman and a woman together, unable to have that biological eternal increase, because Mormons are different than Protestants. Again, we believe God has a body, that there's as man is now God once was, as God is now man can become, right? Our mortality and the physical nature, the anthropomorphic God model that was prevalent when Jesus Christ was on earth and through the first, I'd say 200 to 400 years of Christianity before the apostasy. If you take that seriously, using the sealing power on earth as in heaven to bind two people of the same gender together that cannot have that physical, biological increase of children would be actually a form of eternal cruelty that would have to get undone before progression could happen, not because they're defunct, but because their society put them in that defunct situation that stopped progress. So when you view it as progress and not success, okay, then you stop judging and start understanding, and I believe become more empathetic and more able to describe why eternal marriage has always been a heterosexual union. Not to elevate heterosexuality, but to elevate progression. Am I wrong?
Let me add a couple of things to that.
Okay.
So I want to make clear that I don't discount that gay couples can have a level of joy and happiness in the relationship. I don't doubt that at all.
Mm-hmm.
I loved my boyfriends.
Mm-hmm.
And had a level of joy and happiness.
Yeah.
And there's two different types of joy mentioned in Scripture. There's the joy of it says in whatever translation you use, it could say the joy of the godless or the joy of the wicked. And by wicked, I mean people who are just straying from the right path. Their joy, they will have joy in mortality, but by and by it's going to go away, after this life, and it's temporary, right? We're not accustomed to talking about the wicked or sinners having joy, but I mean, it's in the scriptures. It says they have their version of joy, but it's a counterfeit.
And also, if you read Terrell and Fiona Given's book on All Things New, understanding how, as we shed how the creeds have interpreted sin as this like eternally damning, super hyper negative thing, and we understand it more in the context of woundedness, then it takes that edge off that allows us to see more clearly how, forsaking this sin isn't some kind of horrible self-condemnation as much as just personal improvement.
Yeah, healing yourself and getting better, coming closer to God.
Yeah, exactly. So keep going. I'm sorry.
So yeah, I mean, but in connection with that, something I that really stuck with me early on, after I joined the church, I remember listening to a talk by Elder President Packer before he passed away, where he was talking about procreation. And he said that procreation is not an incidental part of the plan. He said it is the plan of happiness. And if you think about that, and you think to the temple, right, that we're supposed to have joy and rejoicing in our posterity, right? And think of the temple, and there are many other scriptural references where joy is inextricably connected to procreation
and family,
right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that the first commandment that God gave to Adam and Eve, right? To multiply and replenish the earth. There's a reason for that, right? Because we become co-creators with our heavenly parents, and they have joy from extending the opportunity to become like them to us, right?
Yeah.
And we in turn get to do that with our children. And that's the plan, right?
Yeah.
The plan is centered. Christ makes it possible, but the point is that we can have joy in procreation and creating like our heavenly parents. And that's what gay couples are missing. They're missing that higher purpose for marriage and for the marriage relationship. And anyway, that's just something that I hope everyone can have, that realize what their true identity is. Anyway.
Is that a fourth lie coming up, Tember?
What is the fourth lie?
You mentioned identity, and as an outsider looking in, I'm about as straight as they come. I'm a freaking troglodyte. I'm a dumb jock that likes the cheerleader. All right. My life is simple. Like on that Kinsey scale, I'm probably I'm not even a 0. I'm like a -1. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever it is. I don't know if
that is.
Isn't the Kinsey scale, isn't that the scale where they rate what your attraction is or something like that? Yeah. I can't remember if 10 is super straight and 0 is super gay.
0 to 6. 0 is totally heterosexual. 6 is you're flaming gay, which is like me.
Okay, cool. So I'm like a -1. You know what I'm saying? It's I'm like a -1, right?
What kind of disorder even is that, Garden?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just it's narcissism. I love myself. But no, crap. Where was I going with this? You made me laugh.
I'm sorry.
You totally made me laugh. Oh, identity. Yeah. So as an outsider looking in, you know what I'm saying? I'm the -1 on the Kinsey scale or whatever. Okay. As I've been vocal on this issue, it's been interesting. It's so difficult to talk about it. And this is why I appreciate talking with you, because, obviously you're a man of faith. I look up to you in so many ways, and we're buddies. So it's always fun talking with your buddies. But my biggest concern when talking on this issue is you can't talk about it because it's a wedge issue, and it's a hot button issue. But the point is almost always missed or misconstrued. That my biggest beef with how we handle this argument right now is actually the word you just mentioned, which I guess we'll call the fourth lie. And that is identity. You are not your sexuality first. You are not your athleticism first. You are not your wealth first. You are not your skin color first. You're not any of that.
I'm not Canadian first.
Yeah, you're not your nationality first. Yeah, thanks heavens. Wait until you go serve your mission in a socialist country. You'll lie and say you're Canadian, even if you're American. You know what I'm saying? But you're none of that stuff first. And the reason why I really believe Russell M. Nelson was a prophet, every prophet kind of has that chance to do something pretty epic that puts them up there with the others. We're like, okay, cool. Yeah. You passed this generation's test. Right. And I really think Russell M. Nelson passed this generation's test when he made that really good talk about, first, you are children of God. Second, you are children of the covenant. Third, you are disciples of Christ. all that other crap is fourth. And I've said it many times on the show that the single best thing that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints does is have in the children's songbook, song number 1, I am a child of God. And when you go to church, that's the very first thing that they reinforce is you have a Father in heaven. Your worth is intrinsic. Your wealth is secondary. Your political status is secondary. Your the size of your house is secondary. Everything, dare I even say your sexuality, is last. But in the world, especially nowadays, how it's going, that's freaking everything. Oh my gosh. You know what I'm saying? It's almost inescapable. I feel bad for some of these kids. I feel bad for a gay youth nowadays, almost more just for how he will get bombarded about how his sexuality needs to be manipulated and interpreted. I think it must be so confusing. Forget the hormones, how you will be predaciously marketed to, told to behave, appealed to for votes. You will be treated like cattle for the rest of your life. You know what I'm saying? By people that want to manipulate you for what the 1/4 of your love is, the eros of your life. And it quickly becomes easy for even an intelligent person to misunderstand as an overwhelming source of identity, when to God, it's like number 4 or 5 on the totem pole. You know what I'm saying? To the world, it's number 1. And that, I think, is the great disorder, is the disordering of the priorities. You know what I'm saying? And what your identity is. I'm sorry, the disordering of the identities. So yeah, that's mine. I added a 4th. Hey, look, I had something to contribute. Timber. I'm proud. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, this has been great. We've had you on for freaking over an hour. I told you it was going to be 45 minutes and we're going to have to go soon. But like, before we go, like, any final thoughts, anything we missed? I could listen to you talk for hours, man.
Oh man. I don't know. I want to offer hope to any members who are struggling with, if they're going to leave the church or if they have a place in God's plan. And I just want to resoundingly say yes, that all of us have to keep our desire. I say this a million times, but all of us have to keep our desires, appetites, and passions within the Lord's bounds. And in that we have joy. And there are ways that we can healthily express our same-sex attraction, whether it's spiritually or emotionally or platonic physical intimacy with other people that are fulfilling, and we don't have to go the sexual route. And if that's confusing to some people, look at like John laying on Jesus's chest at the Last Supper, or David and Jonathan had a deep physical intimacy with each other, but it was totally platonic. And
or join the military and go through a hard mission together, or go serve a mission in a socialist country that hates you because you're American, has bad weather, no heat, and is like mired with poverty. And trust me, you'll understand plenty of platonic brotherhood. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, okay.
Yeah. And it's just like, I don't know. I wish people would see that it's not all about sex. Like, and no matter whether you have a struggle with same-sex attraction or not, all of us have the opportunity to become like our heavenly parents, and it requires submitting our wills to God's will, just like Jesus did. And I know that's not easy, but as we strive to do that little by little, it becomes easier. So.
Cool, man. So how do people find you if they want to reach out and they want to follow you, or they want to contact you and talk, or what? How do they get a hold of you, man?
You can go to my website, which is Beacon, like a lighthouse, Beacon, SSA, like same-sex attraction, ministry.org. Shoot me an email at beaconssa@gmail.com. Contact me on Facebook. There's a lot of ways you can contact me, but those are probably the main ways.
Rock on. Awesome. Well, guys, This has been awesome. This is one of my favorite shows we've ever done. Timber, you're great.
That was fantastic.
In the comments, let us know, where you think we go wrong. What's up? Let's keep the conversation going. This is Midnight Mormons. We'll see you guys in the next program.